Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Today's video stems basically from a lot of comments and questions I've got about my lathe and pin turning and how to get started. This is not going to be an instructional video, but more of an informational video on what all you need to actually get started turning pins. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and let's get started. Obviously, the lathe is one of the most important things that you need to start turning pins. So if you have a lathe, you have other items that you need to get to be able to turn pins. So we'll just start from the very beginning and work our way through. Once you've chosen your pin blank, then you're going to have to drill a hole through the center of the blank. So you're going to need a special drill bit. These are drill bits that come in all different shapes and sizes, and the sizes depend on the pin size that you're trying to turn. And on the pin kit itself will tell you the size that you will need. I'm just sticking with a 7mm. This is a slimline pin. So you would need a 7mm bit to drill the hole. So once you get the 7mm bit and you've centered your blank and you drill the hole, you're going to put the insert, the copper insert for the pin blank. Once it's glued in with the CA glue, you're going to have to ream out the top to get the tip of the insert level with the blank. With that, you're going to have a reamer. And again, with the reamer, this should be the same size as the bit you're using. So this is a 7mm. You can buy a set of these of all different sizes, so you'll have them at your disposal, because you may not want to turn just one size of pin. Right now, I'm just turning slimline pins, which is 7mm. You may want to turn a cigar style pin, which is a larger size. You would need a larger bit and a larger reamer. Okay, so now you've got your blank, you've got your drill bit, you've drilled the hole in center all the way through. A key to that too, when you're drilling it through all the way, make sure you have a scrap piece of wood that you're drilling through so you don't have any tear out on the bottom side. Alright, so if the hole is drilled, you change it out to the reamer. The reamer goes through the same size hole, it fits 7mm. And this brings the wood level with the insert. All right, so now you're ready to take this over to the mandrel. You have to have a mandrel to be able to turn a pin. Not necessarily have to, you can turn it without one, but it is easier for me, and this is how I learned. So it's a cheap way to be able to do it very easy. I think I paid $12 for this mandrel. There's two different sizes, a number 1 and a number 2. It depends on the size of your lathe. My lathe holds a number 2 insert, so this is a number 2 mandrel. When drilling the hole on the drill press, it's best to have something to hold or clamp down this so it doesn't move, twist on you. Your hand would be really close to the bit if you try to hold it by hand. So you can use a vise to clamp it down, or you can make a little jig yourself like I've done. Basically, it's just a hinge clamp that has the size of the insert that I want, that will fit snugly, that will hold it in place whenever I'm drilling it in through the hole, and my hands are away from the drill bit whenever it's drilling. With the mandrel, you're going to need some bushings. These bushings are probably the most important part of the mandrel, because that bushing will determine the size you want to turn your pin down to meet the pin kit requirement for the pin kit that you purchased. So the bushings, I think, are probably the most important part of the mandrel. So once you have your mandrel, your bushings need to be also, just like your drill bit and your reamer, should be the same size. So if you're doing 7mm, all items you're using should be 7mm. So now that you've seen the basic stuff that you need to be able to start turning pins, let's go over to the lathe, put the mandrel in with the pin blank that I've turned down, and I'll show you a couple of different other items that you could get. So you've picked out your pin blank, you've drilled the hole, you've inserted the insert, glued it in, you've reamed it out to where the metal meets the wood. Now you want to go over to the lathe and you can insert your mandrel into the headstock there. And again, it determines the size of this. This is a number 2, so your number 2 mandrel would go in. you'd want a bushing up against the end. Now bushings, the bushings are just little round. These are critical, but these bushings meet the size of the pin kit that you've got. So a couple of things about the bushings are that these do turn, these do sand down. So in time they will shrink to the size of the 7mm and won't meet up with the pin. So it's always good to have extra bushings around, simply because not just that, but they're so small they do get lost in the sawdust behind your cabinet. So it's always good to have extra bushings. So once you have one bushing on, I've already turned the pin blank down, so I'm going to go ahead and just insert the one I've turned down back onto the mandrel, and then insert another bushing which would meet the wood that's already been turned down. Then you put the other pin blank that you're wanting to turn on, and again mine's already turned down, so mine already meets. And then you put on your other bushing. If you have room at the end, you can add additional bushings to get up to the threshold, and then you want to screw on the end of the mandrel all the way up to where it's tight, and this has no flex in it at all. In the end of the mandrel will have a divot. That divot is for your tailstock, for whenever you bring the tailstock up to the end, you can bring it right up with the mandrel and tighten it down. I don't like this method simply because you're putting pressure on the mandrel, and the mandrel itself can bend, and if it bends then you're going to have uneven cuts. So there's another thing you can get that will help you reduce the risk of bending your mandrel. And again, depending on the size of your lathe, you could get you a Mandrel Saver. This Mandrel Saver here are great because this is a number 2, because the number 2 fits the insert of my tailstock. So what this does, you won't need the threaded nut. You can take that off, and what this does is a hollow end, so when you bring it up, it inserts into the rod and goes all the way up to the bushing instead of the rod. So now the pressure is on the bushings and the wood versus the rod, and it'll give you better control. So that, I think, is a lot better than actually having it pressed against the rod. This is what I use, and these are relatively cheap. You can get these for around $10 to $15 depending on where you get them from. When turning the pin, you want to take nice, slow, even cuts when you're doing it. And again, I've already turned this down to the dimensions I'd like and I want, so just do it real slow, real evenly, and then once you get down to the bushings and to how the shape of the pin is you like, then you want to make sure that when you go to sand it, leave just a little bit proud of the bushing, because you are going to have to sand this down to give a super smooth finish. So you do want it just a little bit proud of the bushings, so when you go to sand it, it sands down directly to a flat. First, when you go to sanding, make sure you take off your tool rest. You do not want to sand with your tool rest on your project, because if your hand gets caught in behind there, that would not be a good day. The other item is micro mesh pads that you can use to sand with. Now with the Easy Wood tools that I use, it really gets it down to a real fine, smooth finish, so you don't have to do a whole lot of sanding. But with these micro mesh pads going all the way up to 12,000 grit, you can get a really super smooth finish on your pins, which I like a real smooth finish. So once you go through all of your grits, and this will bring it down to the actual bushing itself, then you want to finish the pin. You want to make sure you have a good durable finish that will keep up with the use of the pin, because it is in your hand when you're using it, and the oils and the water from your hands can take the finishes off and bring the shininess down to a dull. One of the most common finishes you see people use is a CA finish. This is a medium CA finish that you can use, and I'll be very honest, I have not mastered this at all. One of the best CA finish pin turners that I've seen is RJB Woodturners, and he's got some great videos. I'll leave a link to him down below, but if you want to do a good CA shiny finish, you could do that. I'm going to try something new today. I'm going to be trying the Dr. Woodshop's Pen Plus. This is a high friction polish that is specifically made to withstand the use of the pen. The product was made in mind for a lot of use. So I want to put it to the test today and see how this works between the look of the pen once it's finished. Also, what does the pen look like after I've used it for some time? So we're going to put Dr. Woodshop Pen Plus to the test today. This particular pen is made of cocoa bolo with the tip in with some marble wood. And let's take it over to the table and go ahead and assemble the pen and see what it looks like. So once you have everything out of the mandrel, you'll have to have a way to press the parts into the ends of the turn pieces. You can get a pen press to do this. I personally just use a Bessey clamp to clamp them in. So let's clamp them together. So I hope today's video was helpful to you if you want to get into pen turning, the items that you need to turn the pens, and the different finishes that you could use. What I was showing with this original pen, this was the first pen that I ever turned a few months ago. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but the shine and luster has pretty much been worn off just through usage. This is the one we just did. It's got a beautiful shine to it. And I'm going to swap out my first pen with this pen and give it a trial run at work and see how it goes, and see how the Dr. Woodshop's Pen Plus finish actually holds up to the true test. I think it's a good product as far as the finished look, but we're going to see how it holds up during action. So hope the video today was helpful. We'd like to thank you for watching the video, and always remember, be kind to one another.